Welcome to the Inner Athlete Podcast, where we discuss all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring.
Welcome back to the Inner Athlete Podcast. We have Coach Nathan here. Nathan, it's been a while since you've been here. Just give us a quick update of what's been happening in your world.
Yeah, sure. Keeping busy. So got knocked off term one of our at Richmond Institute, so which is really nice to get through term one, and now in the school holidays at the moment, so I've got a bit of time to prep for term two. But other than that, in athlete side of things, I've been, we've been updating the course, actually, our online course, the Youth Athletic Development course, which has been, a bit of a project of ours over the last couple of years, and we're just trying to make it a little bit better, and we've updated it and just trying to smooth out the processes for that. So yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later in this podcast, actually. So I'm keeping busy, but everything else is well. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Just getting at it, boxing 3 times a week. Yeah, enjoying that. And planning to go to snow later on this year.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, going my second time in 2 years. I actually enjoyed it the first time around. So
yeah, good one.
Keen to get back into it.
Perfect.
The reason why we're here to chat today is we want to talk about, I guess, youth and youth athlete development, and I guess the physical fitness when it comes to kids and adolescents. We know that if physical fitness should be a part of everyone's life. I think more so it should be established in the earlier stages, so then it manifests later on throughout life as well. But today we're going to talk more about why should this area start to grow and continue to develop, and how personal trainers and strength and conditioning coaches should be looking more into this space, and why should we even be targeting this demographic?
Definitely. No, I think it's a really important topic to discuss. I think, being a personal trainer and then going through and doing a bachelor's degree in exercise science, a lot of the learnings and education is all around adult training and fitness and athletic development, that sort of thing. And there's not a lot of, I guess, knowledge out there around the youth side of things. And that's probably why, the industry, there's not a lot, I guess, youth fitness specialists in the industry. So, I think, the discussion today is more so just to encourage more coaches, I guess, to recognise the opportunities in your local communities, really, for strength and conditioning and fitness support, because I definitely think it's a really important area that we, as fitness professionals, should start to move down towards, because I think it is really important and an area that is, I think, lacking. Because I personally, from my personal experience, playing sport, during high school, and playing local levels, there was no real support in around the fitness side of things. And really, if there was any fitness advice, it would come from the sport coaches, when really they didn't really have much experience or knowledge in that area. They just kind of took something from a book 50 years ago or whatever it is. So I think there needs to be a bit of a push for personal trainers and strength and conditioning coaches and even exercise scientists just to start to work into the youth sector. I think I wanted to, I've put down a few notes here around the statistics around youth in the industry, so or in Australia specifically, and I thought it'd be important to note it. So
before you go with that, let's kind of set the scene.
Go.
Right? We know physical fitness is really important, as I mentioned before in the intro. We know that, I know personally for us, we had our own physical battles growing up, whether it was injury, being overweight, whatever it may be, like eating issues and all that jazz. We always found that the gym was a really good place for that as well, and we know that it positively impacts. But let's actually go through the statistics as you mentioned before.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I'll kind of go through. So this is from the ABS in 2018, and it was quite concerning when I did a bit of a market research a couple of years ago on youth and how they really keeping active. And one statistic that I looked at was that 60% or 66% of those aged between 2 and 17 years old did not meet the physical activity guidelines.
So let's backtrack on that. What are the physical activity guidelines?
Yeah, so the main one is getting at least 150 minutes of moderate exercise per day, and it can be a mixture of things. It could be going out and playing sport, could be going for a walk, could be even
active transport, riding your bike, walking to school.
Yep, definitely, and of course some sort of strength training. So it was quite shocking, to be honest, to see that 2 in 3 kids, I guess, between those ages of 2 and 17 are not meeting those guidelines. So, and there was...
Sorry, I want to add to that, because that's just to maintain health.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
That's not to improve health.
Yep.
That's to maintain health.
Correct.
So there's a lot of caveats within this data.
Mm-hmm. So, of course, Trent and I get a lot of excitement around youth athletic development, so around sport performance and getting you faster, fitter, all those sort of things. But we also have a passion to help those that should be physically active for their health. I think it's really important, not only physically but mentally. So that was a bit shocking of a bit of a piece of statistics that I looked at. To go a little bit further, in that 1 in 4 kids between the ages of 2 and 17 were overweight or obese. So that 25% of kids in Australia are obese or overweight, which is...
It's like scary, but not like, I was like, yeah, kind of no shit.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we can kind of see how things are trending in that direction.
Definitely.
Advent of social media. We see, I guess, the access to, what we would consider like non-healthy, but like real foods, I'll say, like whole foods, essentially.
Definitely.
Is being reduced, or the consumption of real foods at the end of the day. There's more access to, junk food, fast food than ever before. Don't worry, I was guilty of this when I was younger. Going to the local chicken shop and get a chicken roll on, at least once a week. Going to the tuck shop, get a chocolate croissant. I was guilty of a lot of these things, and being quite overweight. If not, I'll probably be technically actually I was technically obese according to the medical definition.
Yep.
As a young kid. So I understand, and I totally relate to these results.
100%. Yeah, again, I'm the same. One of the other statistics here. This exact one. Yeah, 1 in 4. So between ages of 2 and 17. Yep. There's another one here that I had, and I couldn't believe it. It said 2% of teenagers between 13 and 17 meet the physical guidelines. Only 2%. Between ages of 13 and 17. So that's pretty much your high school years. And again, what you alluded to around social media, so technology, and then obviously...
I think school's a big...
Schoolwork,
the amount of homework the kids got to do these days. Like, they do 5 hours of schoolwork a day. Then they've got to go home and do another 1 to 2 hours of schoolwork. Then they just want to mentally chill out, and then they just go on social media, Netflix, whatever it may be. And this is 2018 data, and then obviously with COVID, that would have spiked that up in the negative direction, in the direction where we don't want it to move into. And yeah, I think this data really highlights there is a growing space
for sure
for this.
Yeah, well, it's there. I think it's been well known for a long time now, and I think, yes, it's similar statistics, to be honest, in the adult world, as we know. Obesity is, I think is probably 60s, nearly maybe 70% of Australian population now. So, it's obviously really important. But if we can get fitness professionals in the field and targeting youth at a younger age, then we can have a better impact for nationwide, really, so that in the future they are getting more physically active, they're getting the support that they need, and they've got, I guess, the education and the knowledge to be able to maintain a healthy and physical lifestyle.
All right, let's paint a picture of the actual, what would this actual kid look like? So we said between the ages of 2 and 17 years old. So let's pick up a 13-year-old, right?
Yep.
Let's pick a boy. Maybe they're 5'6", 13 years old, started year 7, right? Or let's say they're on school holidays. They might be 85 to 90 kilos, and then they're probably playing video games with their friends after school, doing whatever work they need to, and then they're not even getting 150 minutes a day. Oh, not a day, a week, right? And that's not even that much. That's less than 30 minutes a day of just physical activity.
Yep.
This is obviously 2018, right? In that time, this is when this data was picked up. So, or was when this data was kind of picked up. Then obviously add COVID to that. What could we only do? Go outside for an hour a day? You know, we limited sunlight, and then we also limit the physical activity. Kids couldn't even play on playgrounds at one stage or another. Team sports weren't a thing. Kids tried to get into running. You know, a lot of them actually got injured, unfortunately.
100%.
And then what are they gonna do? Netflix, eat, have to kind of like do something in order to pass the time, essentially. Then obviously online school would, you know, negatively affected people. Obviously, then that's going to have a negative effect on not just the physical and mental side, but also the developmental side as well. So then these kids they're getting way less physical activity. They might only be getting 100 minutes a week. Now they're going to get 40 minutes a week. And maybe that's just to, you know, walk to the shops or something like that, or go grocery shopping. And even it's still physical activity because you're walking around, but it's not even like I would consider like somewhat grueling exercise.
No, it's not.
So it's a really bleak picture when you paint it.
It is. I think, and I think, you know, we're in a good spot because, you know, we think about fitness, we think about physical health. I guess we've lived it, and we've educated others, we've coached others, and we know that we know the benefits of exercise, and we won't go too much in depth of that today, but it's more so that acknowledging that we're in a bit of a negative state, I guess, across the nation, and I think
gone backwards.
We've gone backwards, and we need to do something about that. And I think, you know, to be honest, I'd like to encourage more personal trainers, more coaches. I want them to do what we do. And I think, you know, me and you have had discussions before, is that, you know, we don't care that there's other coaches out there that specialise in youth athletic development or strength conditioning or fitness, because we want more coaches out there coaching young kids, because we know that it's for the greater good, really. At the end of the day, we want everyone to be able to have access to it. Like, you know, that's something we wish we had when we were growing up. And to be honest, it's very limited. We're probably one of the facilities in, you know, that it's, you know, there's not many around that do what we do.
I want to add another thing in there as well. Is the drop-off rate, right?
Yeah.
The drop-off of sport and physical activity. It actually increases. The rate of drop-off increases as they get, you know, to the higher levels of high school. So year 10, year 11, year 12, when school gets somewhat serious, a lot of kids will actually drop off to focus more on academics and focus on, you know, getting into university or post-schooling education, whatever it may be. Then you've got to add that element as well. We're just looking at this data in isolation, but then there's going to be other influential factors at play.
Oh, for sure, mate. We could be talking for hours on the different factors and all of that. But I think, you know, I actually wanted to also share a bit of our own actual research that we did on our target market. And to be honest, I just had to look through Kingston Heath, which is our region of where our gym is located. It's about 20 suburbs.
Kingston Council, sorry.
Kingston Council, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry,
the municipality.
Sorry, there you go.
Kingston Council.
I obviously don't live in this area, but that's all right. We got someone who does. So it's about 20 suburbs, I think, from what I know, in this area. And I had a look through, and between the ages of 10 and 19 years old, so, you know, just the end of primary school and all through high school, there's about 20,000 kids. About 20,000 of those aged between 10 and 19. And that's a lot, right? So, and one took some statistics from a couple of years ago, and 70% of those kids actually play sport at a club, which was quite interesting, that they're still not getting the physical activity guidelines. So they're probably just getting to training once a week and doing a game, on the weekends, and they're still not getting the activity that they desire.
And when we look at data, and everyone's obviously looked at data because of what's happened, right? We won't go into that. But when we look at this data, we're looking at specifically the Kingston area, the Kingston Council area.
Council.
Then obviously we mentioned before that 2/3 are not meeting the physical activity guidelines as well, right? That's Australia-wide.
Correct.
The Kingston Council is a little bit of a unique place. There's a lot of sporting teams, a lot of sporting ovals. There's a lot of different sports in the area as well.
Definitely.
And usually when you've got more of a built-up area and they've got the facilities and all that jazz, it's easier to tick that box in that sense, because there is, I guess, the supply is there to meet the demand in that sense.
For sure.
So just a caveat with that.
No, definitely. No, I think so. I did do a bit of research with the stats around physical activity, and it was very similar actually. Even though we have that built-up area, a little bit more activity, definitely, like as you said. So yeah, again, it's still a concern no matter where we live or where we, what area we're in. And I think we need to have, like you said, more opportunities that supply for that demand. And the reason I guess we want to encourage other coaches, personal trainers to go down this path is that there's 20,000 kids out there that you could capitalise on to help, not for just obviously business reasons, but to help. Like if you capture just 1%.
Well, not even that. 0.5%.
Half a percent. That's 100 people that you can help and support. Well, you could do that through, your own gym, your own business, all that sort of thing, and we can cover that in a moment. But I think, just pondering on that is that, 0.5% of just this region. Now think about your region. You might live somewhere in Western Sydney, Western Brisbane, anywhere in Australia. In the major cities and outer suburbs, you can look at that and you can, have a quick little, research of the amount of population and how much youth are in your area, and you will find a lot. And a lot of them play sport, and a lot of them want to be healthy. And to be honest, I think a lot of parents want their kids to be healthy. They don't want them to get injured while playing sport. They want them to, they don't want to be obese and overweight and have, increased risks of health conditions and things like that.
Or keep up with their teammates, keep up with the competition,
sure.
If the standard starts to increase.
100%. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess if there's a need for this target market, so we've got 20,000 kids between the ages of 10 and 18?
10 and 19.
10 and 19,
yep.
Right? So we've got 20,000 kids. All right, there's obviously a market there.
For sure.
All right? So let's discuss why should people actually start looking into this space.
Yeah, definitely. So, I definitely think that, those coming out of personal training courses, exercise science degrees, and that sort of thing, for the most part, from my experience, that they want to work with professional athletes, and and that's not a bad goal to have, but unfortunately, there's limited jobs in that space, in the professional sports sector.
Well, there's 18 teams in the AFL.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There's about 18 teams in the NRL. Then you've got Super Rugby. Then you've got A-League Soccer.
Yep.
And you probably got maybe 50 to 60 professional teams, right, in Australia that would pay relatively well.
Correct.
From my experience and from talking to others and, and watching other coaches' careers progress over time and getting into these organisations and clubs, the likelihood of getting into those jobs few and far between. Like you're probably looking at maybe like 1 to 5% chance.
For sure. Yeah.
Because of the amount of work and time and effort required to get there. And then the ones that actually get there usually they display like a tenacity or characteristic that enables them to become successful in that space. Usually they display a similar trait to what the actual athletes themselves or the players that themselves do in order to become successful at that sport.
That's right.
And as a result, spending between 2 and 5 years of either no pay, little pay, or some pay, and a lot of hours and probably a lot of travel at the same time. And it's like, all right, now they're going to get rewarded for being there.
Yeah, it's a limited area, and if you want to go for that, then sure. But I think there's a huge opportunity just in your local community, in your local area. Whether it is the local sport clubs, schools definitely is a growing area, and I know that a lot of, especially private schools, are starting to invest more into health and fitness because they see the benefit not only on their physical, mental health, but also their academic grades and things like that, which is really important. And even just in your local gym. So those personal trainers that are in your Fitness First, your gym, your Good Lives, your Crunches, anyone in training in those, and if you're listening to this, like you guys have a lot of young kids coming in that don't really know what they're doing. And, you can have a massive impact on their development, to ensure that they firstly don't injure themselves in the gym, but also you can improve their, their sport performance, their athletic development, get
them jacked.
Yeah, exactly. Get confident, really. Not only, and that's what I mean. Like, it's not all about just getting physically athletic and looking good and things like that. It's feeling good as well. It's improving your self-confidence. And to be honest, and another big thing which we can probably talk about in another podcast is structure. Is putting structure in someone's routine in their week, and something healthy that's going to continue on in the rest of their life. And if a personal trainer or a coach can help a person or a young person with that, it's really going to have a massive impact in their future development.
Cool. Yeah, so you mentioned the opportunities in different spaces and different organisations and schools and whatnot. Why aren't personal trainers or even like strength coaches, actually trying to transition to the space or at least attempt to dabble in it?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lack of confidence training youth athletes, and especially even around the athletic side of things, anything to do with speed, change direction, agility, jumping, plyometrics, all that sort of thing. To be honest, it's not really covered enough, I think, even in your personal training courses and even in the degrees. It does touch it in a way, and I think a lack of confidence in that practical side. And I think that's why you and I have done a lot of volunteer work and put ourselves out there and gotten mentors to kind of guide us through that. And I think that's one, firstly, area that I think, if you do want to work in the youth space, and I think it's a really great, rewarding area to work in. Reach out to people, get volunteer work. Work in a sports club, work at a gym, or work at a space that a high school, something like that, where they actually deliver fitness programs. But yeah, it is that lack of confidence, is that there's no experience or not enough knowledge. Another thing as well is they might get caught up in the myths out there. It stunts your growth, things like that. So there's actually a lack of education for yourself as a coach. So, unfortunately, there is some PTs out there and coaches that kind of go by this rumour or myth that has been going around that, stunts your growth when we know that it doesn't. Makes girls bulky and get big muscles. Like, these are things that have been researched and obviously have been dispelled. So, just things like that. And then just managing parents' expectations as well. How do you actually communicate with parents? How do you sell the idea that strength training is really good for development of bones, their brain, their cardiovascular system?
Muscle, tendon, ligaments, cardiovascular system, improve overall performance. I think it's just like, as you mentioned before, there's just a huge benefit. And I will say this, though, you spoke about how do you sell this to parents, right?
Yeah.
That's a really hard thing. Now, we have a lot of youth athletes here, and we have the privilege, some of the parents are really good. They just inherently get it because they were former athletes themselves. Some parents, they kind of don't understand it because they've never really understood this space or didn't know it was really a thing as well. So how do you sell the idea that this is, your son or daughter has a problem, say they haven't done any rehab, or they've been to gyms and done physiotherapy, and it's just not been specific enough to them, right? And it just hasn't been catered towards their needs because I guess the physio or whoever they've gone to just don't understand fully in terms of, like, I guess we look at that long-term athlete development model. We also look at the research in terms of how, like, tendons and ligaments, develop over time. Obviously there's certain conditions we can talk about that are, developmental related as well. There's a whole host of things we can talk about, which we have done in the past, but it's also that providing the education for the parents and be like, look, this is what is done, or this is what's been done at the moment, or I've worked with X, Y, and Z, and I've been able to help them to get to the point where they're pain-free, moving well, performing at the best. The other part is how do you link it back to the research, and at the end of the day is, are you going to be able to create the buy-in with the kid as well? And that's probably the biggest part. The parents are more likely to pay X amount of dollars per week for you to train their child if they know they're getting a return out of it as well, because they want to see the results of what you've said or what it can provide. Most people know strength training is beneficial, right? But they don't understand the magnitude of how beneficial it is.
Correct.
That's the bigger part. We know that, yes, it's good.
Yep.
How much of a difference is it going to make?
Exactly. And I think, and that's why I'm in education, because education is, at the end of the day, is what you do to we want to sell our services in a way because we know it's good for you, but your ability to educate, to teach, to tell someone of the benefits of exercise, of athletic development, and the things that we do here. And I think that you as a coach need to educate yourself first, because before you can then go out and train these people and have these conversations with parents. So that's a massive area.
Cool. All right, let's move on to the last part. So if a personal trainer or SSC coach wants to work with youth, right, and they want to gain more knowledge and experience with youth, how do they go about this? What's the next phase in their development? So they've done a PT course, or they're in the midst of their PT course or their sports science degree, and it's like, all right, they've got a little bit of experience working with youth. It's like, this is a place I want to explore a little bit more, get a bit more knowledge and understanding. What do they do?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of books, a lot of podcasts, a lot of courses, and things like that. We'll plug one of our courses. We have a course that Trent and I have developed. It's called the Youth Athletic Development course, and we've got it actually online, which actually goes through the long-term athletic development model. We go through screening processes. We teach you essentially how to program and coach and teach young athletes. We'll go over strength, power, speed, agility, jumping and landing, plyometrics, and essentially how to put it all together. So that's one thing. I mean, we can share the links in the show notes, and I think it's one step, because I feel that we've created a really good product or a course really that can essentially start you in the right direction, giving you the knowledge that you need, and also the ammunition in a way to then talk and educate to your athletes, to your young kids and young athletes, and even parents. So that's one area that definitely a course I think that will help you a lot. So feel free to definitely check that one out. But if you want to also look into some other areas. There's books. So there's a book called The Essentials of Youth Fitness, which is done by the American College of Sport Medicine, which was a really good book done by all the leading researchers in youth athletic development. So if you want to start somewhere, read up a little bit more on the differences, I guess, on how we develop compared to, or how the young people develop to physical fitness compared to adults. So that's a really good one. There's ones done by Mike Boyle, for example. Functional training for sports is a good one. And I think a recent one as well by Nathan Parnham, The Sporting Parent. Really good book. That covers kind of all the myths, but also the benefits of exercise
and the challenges
for young athletes. It goes over things like social media. How do you deal with that sort of thing? How do you create a culture where parents and kids are valuing their physical fitness, their mental health, and all of that. So that's a handful of books that I think that would help, and even just podcasts, like listening to our podcast. We try and keep our topics as relevant to the youth and to parents, and educating the importance of different areas that we deal with. So it's definitely something I would continue to follow our podcasts, and also there's many other fitness podcasts out there, and I don't know, do you have any others that you've come across?
I know Nathan Parnham talks about Instagram, and we talk about Instagram, how it can be good. It's just a weapon. It's how you use it, right? I think Instagram is really good. There's a lot of good coaches out there. I think Jake Tura is a really good one to look into. Bobby White also. Bobby White's more in the basketball in America. Mm-hmm. Jake Tura is a collegiate strength coach. He puts out a lot of research when it comes to tendon health. Mm-hmm. He's really big into that space, and I've been following him for years, and I implement a lot of his stuff with a lot of the members here as well, and I think it's very valuable. And I think the other side with the course is looking at the nutrition side in terms of nutritional needs. I know Coach Matt and Dave, and I know Matty boys out there. They did a course on the nutritional needs for youth athletes as well, and it's there's multiple facets that we can actually attack this by. But obviously, if you're a PT or you're a parent or a strength coach or something like that, it's really just to become more armed with more information, then be able to ask more questions to filter out what information is actually relevant for your child. That's the other thing as well. The other thing we've actually been doing a bit more lately is like performance consults or consultations, right?
Yep.
So one of the things is, we get parents that are kind of confused, or not so much confused. They want to know how to best help their kid, right? So whether that might be, we'll sit down usually during the school holidays because we have an opportunity to implement some systems. So it might be something like creating better habits around eating or providing alternatives and other sources, right? Kids don't like listening to their parents, right? Because they're their parents. But if they listen to a figure outside of their family, right, they're more likely to understand, or they're more likely to listen, and then they're more likely to implement as well, especially if that individual is someone who's preaching what they're saying or what they're saying to the person as well. So I've done that quite a few times, help better, improve sleep patterns, better scheduling, so that when things are stressful, they're not as overwhelmed. In getting them to make better choices when it comes to food. I don't recommend certain, I'll make suggestions about certain foods and what they could eat and try. I'll just throw foods out and say if I want them to eat more protein, if they filled in a food diary, just to get an idea of where they're at. And I was like, okay, cool. You're basically having toast with butter, and that's it, right? We know that protein's important for not just from recovery and performance, but we also know in terms of development as well.
Exactly.
Lack of protein will not stunt your growth. That's a bad way to put it, but it will limit your ability to develop tissue that's required to perform at a higher level. So whether it's like tendon, muscles, bone, whatever it may be, just to develop more size over time, which is going to have a positive effect.
Definitely.
Right. Then other stuff, speaking about sleep, give some members some recommendations for sleep interventions, using some red lights, blue light blockers on the phone, using nasal strips over the nose. There's so many things you can actually address the individuals by, and this is like just another layer, right? This general, you can start with strength training as the gateway to help a lot of these kids,
For sure.
right? Because more than likely they're curious. When they're curious, they're more likely to try things, and it's like, all right, cool. And they start to see some results, and it's like, all right. Eventually, they'll hit a point where they hit a wall in their training. It's like, all right, what things do we need to do on top of that to improve? 9 times out of 10, their diet actually starts to improve as a result. They start making more conscious choices. They're not just making quick, easy, fast energy choices. Then from there, their sleep actually starts to improve. Then from there, when they eat better, they working harder during the day, they end up sleeping better. So you get like this manifestation, because none of our systems or none of like the pillars of health actually work in isolation. They actually work concurrently or congruently with one another. So I guess, as you can tell, I really enjoy talking about this stuff and helping the parents to understand more about this, because this will have a downstream effect later on in their lives. So the idea is we're trying, as parents, you're trying to give them the tools to become successful in their life as they get older.
Exactly.
Right? They're dependent on you. Eventually, they're going to have some level of independence in their life, and that's where we want to try and help them to have some level of independence. And then, as a strength coach or PT, whoever it may be, they're going to help guide that process as well. Our job is not to count reps. Our job is actually to guide them what's going to drive them towards their goals. Everyone can count to 12. Everyone can count to 20 these days. Our goal is to create a program and a system for them to follow, as you mentioned before, having that structure in place in order to achieve that particular thing that they want. That's going to provide value to them, and inadvertently it's going to provide value to their team, to their family, to their job later on down the track. And I think I read this in Forbes. This was when I was in the US in 2017. I think they said those who participate in team sports understand or usually have better outcomes in their career because they know how to work in a team, they know how to work individually as well. So
That's right.
I usually do see that as a positive thing when kids are able to stay in a sport or stay healthy and train on themselves, then commit themselves to a team in order to drive on an outcome, to provide value, to win a championship, whatever it may be. Then that's going to have a positive manifestation in their lives. And you can see like there's a bit of a butterfly effect or a domino effect with this.
No, definitely. No, that's awesome. Well, see, look, obviously, Trent, you've been in the industry for a while now, and you're able to roll that off your tongue quite easily because you're passionate about the area. You've educated yourself. You've worked in the area for such a long time, and I think those out there can be also the same. I think just get yourself educated, get out there, and just volunteer your time. Put yourself out there. We've done years of volunteer work. Reach out to sport clubs. Get your level 1 strength conditioning accreditation. So that you're qualified and things like that, and get out there.
There's no shame. It's easy. I'll give people just a simple gateway in order to get into it, right? Just contact a local club that you used to be affiliated with. It's like, hey, I want to come. I'd love to come down, give my time, and do 20 minutes of speed work after your warm up with your soccer program. Yeah. And I just would love to do it over an 8-week period and just see how they improve. And you might just create 2 4-week blocks. Yeah. Work with the coach, and the coach was like, by the 3rd or 4th week, it's like, oh my god, these guys are fast, and we're winning not by one goal, we're winning by 3 goals or 4 goals, and everyone's just feeling better, the camaraderie is better, and then you provide value. Then inadvertently they're gonna be like, hey, can you come back and do our preseason?
Definitely.
Then you have negotiating power in order to you've kind of started something.
That's it. But no, I think that's it. I think if anyone has questions, feel free to ask us. Like, we're pretty open book. We don't have any secrets. We just want other people to do what we do, because we want more opportunities for young athletes, young people to get fit, get active, be healthy. Really, at the end of the day. So, reach out to us if you do have any other questions.
Cool. We'll wrap it up there for today. If you like this podcast, please comment, share, like, all that lovely stuff. It really does help us. As you mentioned, as Nathan has mentioned before, we're very passionate about this. This is the first industry I actually got into, and I haven't left it since. So I've been around a few times around the sun doing this job specifically. Other than that, I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.
You have just listened to the Inner Athlete podcast. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with the release of weekly episodes. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to get great tips on all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring.